Hello everybody, James here, and it's Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 136. And Dutch was like, damn, it's nearly 3 years we've been doing this. And I looked, March of 2022 is when we started, Dutch.
My God, how long? Over 3 years or close to 3 years?
That's over 3 years, but then we did a couple of interviews on my old channel as well. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been getting on for 3.5 years.
It doesn't seem that long, really. It doesn't.
I wonder how many people who've been watching us have watched every single episode. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't think anybody has. I don't even think you have. Have you?
Well, I was in them. In fairness, I mean, I don't watch them all back,
but it doesn't mean you watch them back. So,
oh God, no.
Oh, there's probably a few people.
Yeah, let us know if you.
But you would have to be from episode 1. Say you joined it at episode 10 and you said, damn, I'm going to go back and see what these guys been saying. And you back it up and you backtrack and then you listen to it. Yeah, there's probably a few. If anybody has listened to every episode, please contact James and tell him.
Yeah, there's been we've done 350 hours worth of content in the last 3 and a bit years as well.
Okay, let's jump ahead a minute. Say when something happens or whatever, we don't do the show anymore. What happens to all this content? You just save it?
No, it lives forever. Is what it does.
Wow. So we are making ourselves live forever with these videos. Yes?
Yeah, in a sense, because I like the idea that this is sort of like a time capsule. Because I mean, over the course of story time with Dutch Mantell, it's sort of changed over the years because now we do a lot more news and then fan questions as well. When we started, we were doing specific pay-per-views or a specific event or something like that. And I could never get you to actually watch them. So it just seemed like a fool's errand to do that. But you much prefer doing the news anyway.
I do. I really do. What's this? My internet connection is unstable. I'm warning you.
Horrifically unstable.
Is it really?
No, it's absolutely fine. Apart from that one blip, it's absolutely fine. Right, let's do the intro first, and we're going to get into the news itself. Of course, there is the books and such from Dirty Dutch Mantell himself, Tales from a Dirt Road in the World According to Dutch. Unsigned, go to Amazon, link to the description. Signed, you go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. He also has the University of Dutch diplomas. He also has the WCW trading cards and some other stuff as well that you can get signed. So email Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. and make your request there. There's other stuff as well. I can't be bothered going with that. But the one other thing I will say is questions for Dutch at gmail.com is how you write into this show, and especially how you submit your questions for the Sunday episode. I was going to say episodical. Is that a word?
Well, it could be. Sometimes if we started using that word and a lot of other people started using the word, I think the dictionary picks it up and makes it a word.
That's how it works. I think a lot of people get really upset with new words that come out on new slang. Then 25 years later, you'll forget where it even originated and you'll just be saying it. Language constantly evolves.
Can you say that word again?
Episodical.
That is a...
No, well, Dutch's internet is going wrong now. So anyway, I best... What is up with your internet today, Dutch, for goodness sake?
I do not know. I do not know. Don't blame me. It's just the United States. I guess we got some protests going on somewhere and they're stomping on a bunch of, cables and stuff and not getting through. But if I found them bastards, I would stop it just like that.
It's funny you say bastard because I was just watching a video of Michael Keaton breaking down his favourite roles on a GQ video.
That's where I got it.
I don't think Johnny Dangerously came up. Would you believe?
Okay, where did the term bastard come from?
Yeah, that's from the film, or at least in popular lexicon, it's from Johnny Dangerously.
Yeah, you and I never say bastard because I consider that like a really crude word, but bastage you can use, and it's like people know that you're not really peed off on them or anything, but you can say bastage, and I use that a lot.
It's like a feck I know you won't know the sitcom Father Ted. There's an Irish, or everyone in it's Irish. So they use the word feck instead, which is it's just an amazing thing.
Johnny Dangerously was a great movie. I loved that movie. You like it?
Never seen it. I've seen clips.
You never saw it?
I've never seen a lot of films.
Wait a minute.
I haven't got
That's
patience.
Impossible. Man. That's impossible to not have seen a lot of movies. I mean, I'm sure you don't go like every other week, but how many movies have you seen?
I don't know.
Folks, listen to this. I think we're in the middle of one giant hoax here. I haven't seen a bunch of movies. How many have you seen?
I don't know, many. But I'm just, whenever anyone just says like a famous film, I've more often not seen it.
You know what I pay attention to now?
Oh, do you know what I watched yesterday? A Few Good Men for like the 10th time. Great film.
Cannes. How do you pronounce that?
Say again.
It's the Cannes Music Festival. Cannes.
Cannes.
Is that the way you say it?
Yeah, Cannes. Yeah, it's Cannes. Yeah, Film Festival.
Cannes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I take the cue from them, and I try to. If they suggest a movie, this movie of the year or whatever, wins the award or whatever they got, I try to see it. I probably don't, but I try to.
Yeah, do you know, funny enough, I just wrote one on my list because Michael Keaton was talking about other films he'd done. One of them was Spotlight. And it's about the Catholic cover-up of abuse and stuff like that, and he's a journalist for the Washington Post.
Yep.
And I've never seen it, so I thought that's exactly the kind of film that I love and my wife hates, so therefore it's even harder to watch films I actually like. That's why I had to watch A Few Good Men yesterday on my phone the entire night.
And how did you rate that?
I've seen it loads of times. It's great.
It is good.
I'm pretty boring. I like a good political thriller. It's like
good.
It's not called Watergate. What's the one with Robert Redford, who's a journalist who discovers the Watergate conspiracy theory?
I think it's called Watergate, isn't it? Or something
called Watergate. I'm trying to think of what the. It's not. It's All the President's Men.
Yep, that's it.
That's a good film. Right.
Let's talk some wrestling. Come on.
We are going to talk some wrestling then. Right. First thing is, I know we talked about him last week. We're going to talk about him again. Jim Ross, best wishes once again. He's undergoing colon surgery to help with colon cancer that he was diagnosed with very recently. And, obviously last week we gave our best wishes and, hope he does well and everything like that. But on AEW's pay-per-view on the weekend, they kept talking about it to the point it was startling. Like, it almost seemed like it was now or never, some real, close to the wire stuff and, how, like, serious this surgery is. Because they kept going back and, well wishes and hope you pull through and stuff like that, which, of course, is great to hear from AEW. We'll talk about WWE in a second. But Jim Ross said the following on his last podcast before going into surgery, which, as far as we know, he's having right now. He's having it this morning as we record this. We record this on a Tuesday morning, Dutch's time. So here's the quote.
No, I was at home. And I got a call from Steve Austin. And when we got off the phone, I looked at my phone and we'd talked for 43 minutes. 43 minutes. And here's what your friends do. They call you, they talk to you, and at the end of the conversation, they tell you they love you. And that's what Steve did. So that's what I got. And that cheered me up and it made me feel strong and vibrant. And he said, you're going to beat this and everything's going to be just fine. Just ride it out, tough it out. I said, oh, I'm going to. I'm going to put my uniform on and go play and give the doctor and the nurses everything they want. And hopefully they're going to do a good job.
But yeah, I mean, did you have any word of just how serious the colon cancer and the surgery was?
Well, Jim, you have my utmost faith in you, and You can beat this, and I hope you do. And my thoughts and prayers are with you, and I hope you're fine. And Jim always was a gentleman to me, always. And I never saw really Jim Ross get mad. I see him get irritated, but and sometimes he was funny as hell when he would get irritated, but you could tell he wasn't mad and all. And he had that Oklahoma accent would come through, and he would show that he was really upset. And actually it was funny. I didn't let him see me kind of chuckle at him, but man, he would just raise hell. But it was very, very entertaining.
What would irritate him? What were the things that got to him?
Well, he was the talent relations thing. So if anybody had a problem, guess who they'd run to? They'd run right to Jim. And Jim would have to sit there and listen to it and say, even if he couldn't do anything about it. He would have to make them think, well, yeah, now we know. And okay. Oh, I don't know if he hated the job, but he probably did hate talking to some of those guys, because some wrestlers are like, I don't mean to say this in a misogynistic manner, but they're women. They take a problem and just fret over it and obsess over it and go on and on. And by them doing that, they make it bigger than what it is. But that was his job, and probably it all boiled up a couple of times. And he wanted to say, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about all this shit from these guys, blah, blah, blah. But only certain people would hear that. I happen to be, I consider myself a lucky one to have heard some of that sometime. He was hilarious. So, Jim, I want you to fight this, get better, and I hope that I get to talk to you soon.
Why did Jim do that role for so long? He was vice president of talent relations for like 8 years.
Because Vince gave it to him. That was his job.
But have you read his books?
I don't
because
think
he was a workaholic. Like, he was working 100 hours a week.
Yeah, I don't think he had a choice. Vince wanted him to, and I guess he paid him to do. I guess he paid him for the announcing job, and I'm sure he paid him for the talent relations job. So he was getting paid for 2 jobs. No telling how much money he knocked down. If the money's right, I'll sit there and listen to shit from guys all day long. I just plug my ears up and say, well, yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you, and I'll see what I can do for you.
Did you ever used to do the Jeff Jarrett thing where you'd always have that Bluetooth thing in his ear? I was, got a call, got to go.
I was the first one to call him on that. I said, take that blue light out of your ear. And you say, Jeff, can I see you a minute? He'd point right to his ear and just keep walking, which was actually fairly inventive, I would think, or I thought at the same time. And I said, and I told him one time, I said, you're not talking to anybody. He says, and he just looked at me like, yeah, don't tell nobody, and kept going.
Back to Jim. He says he has no plans to retire and he wants to be AEW All In, which I think is, I don't know if it's July or August, but it's not too far away. So, he's got designs to be back in the broadcast booth sooner or later.
Where is that going to be coming from?
It's Texas. Is it Arlington?
Arlington, okay.
Yeah. So, right, okay, here's the thing. AEW mentioning constantly, because obviously he's contracted to AEW at the moment. Many goodwill wishes and stuff like that. How much did they mention it? Several times throughout the pay-per-view. They'll mention it more times. Today, as this is broadcast on AEW Dynamite, I'm absolutely sure as well. So, yeah, there's nothing but positivity coming from AEW's camp, obviously. Here's the thing. WWE has mentioned it 0 times. The only even hint that they've made mention to about Jim Ross is Pat McAfee said the word slobber knocker. But didn't mention Jim Ross's name, which I'm almost wondering, has WWE told everybody, whatever you do, do not mention Jim Ross, because we've got a phony wrestling war going on, and apparently that's more important than one of the most beloved people in wrestling history.
Well, normally, WWE has never mentioned their opposition or their competition. They've never mentioned that. Now, since Jim went with AEW, now he goes from being one of their talents to one of theirs, and normally they don't mention anybody else like that. But in this case, I will go out and say, I think Jim, transforms that ideology. I think, since he was there for so long, and he was the voice of WWF and E, I think they could mention him, and I don't think they've actually said, "Hey, let's don't mention Jim Ross's name." I don't think they've done that.
I bet they would. I bet they genuinely would. I bet they would say, "Hey, don't mention Jim Ross out there because he's with the competition, etc." It's like it's 2025. It's not WCW. It's not life or death.
So you're saying that they're that hung up? I don't think they're afraid of AEW.
I don't think they are as well, but I think they're still that hung up on it. I genuinely think they are, because otherwise they would absolutely mention Jim Ross.
But to me, this was a Vince edict. I think don't mention the competition. I think and when Vince is gone, and I think, the Saturday night show, what was that called?
Which main one? Event? Collision? Oh, Saturday night's main event, yeah.
And I think them mentioning his name wouldn't have hurt anything. But I don't know if they're under that instruction or not to mention anybody else's name. But I don't think it would hurt for them to acknowledge that he is sick, and for everybody to wish him well.
Yeah, it's funny because they'll mention AEW, or hint around AEW, like CM Punk and Ricky Starks and Ethan Page or whoever it might be. Yeah, for some reason. Here's the thing. Here's my theory: is wrestling fans love Jim Ross pretty much universally. I'm sure a lot of the wrestlers really love Jim Ross as well. I've always got the impression that a lot of people who work with him in the office didn't appreciate Jim. And I don't know why. Is it just because he's too forthright? Or am I making that up? What do you think?
What was the question? Who didn't like him?
Well, do you think some people in the WWE office didn't like Jim? Because he always seemed to be the butt of some jokes. He didn't seem to be taken seriously at times. He was almost like Howard Finkel, but not quite on the Howard Finkel level. It's being bullied.
You know where that comes from?
Vince.
Because they treat the talent like Vince would treat the talent. And if Vince made a joke about them, people inside the office say, "Oh, well, this is something that he'll like." And they'll transform some of their comments to include Jim Ross just for Vince would like it, just to favor his attention.
We'll say, best wishes to Jim. Hope he makes it to All In.
Yep.
And, with everything. Right, we're going to move on. This is something I showed you just beforehand, but you'd already seen the video. John Bradshaw Layfield had a really great cutting response to somebody. I'm not even going to dignify it with a plug of what Twitter account it was, but it was just some sad bastard who had put together a compilation of just like some of the older wrestlers who they apparently deemed suffering or looking.
He had gone to a convention, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see it.
Oh, we're not going to watch it because I don't want to.
Oh, we're not going to watch it. But I did see it. And what did he say about it? Because what it did to tell the people, it was a bunch of older wrestlers who have retired, and they're not moving like they used to. Like that's something new. I mean, people when they get older, I don't care what business they're in, they're going to move slower and more deliberate, and their knees may give out, their hips may give out, and so what was his meaning to even post that?
To make fun of them or whine or get attention. You know what these people are like. But I mean, there was a couple of points to me like, Dean Malenko, watching him, it's a sad sight. He's got Parkinson's.
Yeah, it is.
That probably doesn't have anything to do, or it may well have nothing to do with the wrestling business. He's got Parkinson's. Marty Jannetty is Marty, so obviously he's looking bad and everything. But then there was like Jerry Lawler. He's had strokes and knee problems and everything. He looked fine.
Yeah.
And he's in his mid-70s.
He just, he's 75. And still, he doesn't look that bad. He looks fine, except he has a little bit of a limp. But hell, who doesn't? And I know I don't move like I used to, because you get in some of these matches, and I mean, the wrestling business was nothing like it is today. Nothing. The production wasn't the same. The talent in the ring wasn't the same. The rings weren't the same. If we had, what OSHA is?
No.
OSHA is a division of the U.S. government, and it's a Safety Hazards Act is what it is. Occupational and safety. If they had come around and tested some of those rings, they'd have probably shut most shows down, because some rings were like landing on concrete. And you could tell how good the ring was by how many bumps these guys were taking. If a guy won't even take an arm drag, something's wrong. Because if you take it on the concrete floor, that hurts. And that's why a lot of guys got hurt. Some of these rings, they weren't familiar with them, and they take a bump and pull a muscle, or pinch the small of your back or whatever nerve. And it takes a while to get over that stuff. Not only that, but it's the traveling. You sit in the same seat for 5-6 hours going to a show, you're not going to get out. Nobody is. You're not going to get out and walk like you were when you got into the car, because you're stiff. But anyway, anybody who posts that on older wrestlers, I got respect for older wrestlers because I'm one of them. And if they're jammed up, and we call it stove up, it's for a reason, because this business made them that way.
Yeah, I mean, I similarly, I look at some of these guys and feel sad for them, like Jake with the breathing apparatus he has to wear, and but he's been in worse shape over the years. Yeah, but
see, I'm saying the breathing apparatus, he may have had that even if he never got into wrestling.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And I think these guys that are limping ass around, they may have had the same, maybe not to the same degree of injury, but they may have had the same stuff if they had never even seen a wrestling match or been in one or been involved in it. So who's to say?
But it's like making fun of some people. It's like, well, do you know what happens when you're in your 60s and 70s of it? You get fat and you get bald. You don't look as great as you did when you were 30. I mean, who does? So, I mean,
I do.
No, in fairness, you have changed. The mustache just gets more powerful with every minute, I think, at this point. But yeah, anyway, here's what John Bradshaw Layfield said. Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me hear that. I read this, but I've forgotten it now.
Okay. This is life. We did what we love. We continue to, because we love wrestling. These guys are legends. Legends are worthy of respect. They are hobbling because they went out every night and performed, hurt or not. We don't ask for pity. We also don't ask for some dipshit to make videos of us to get clicks. We love our business and we bear the scars. These are my friends. F you.
Good for John. I started to respond to it. I said, no, I'm not even going to give him the pleasure of that.
Yeah, there's this is these guys' pensions basically, because the convention circuit is so much better and so much more professional than it once was. That if you had any kind of name in wrestling, you can make a bit of money off your name for probably which is nice to do, probably because you were horrendously overpaid your entire career and your body's half broken down anyway. So it'd be nice to get a bit of money back for it. So I don't think anyone should be made fun of, I guess, or highlighted for not looking how they once did.
I think conventions, that fans go to the conventions and they go, this guy's going to be there, this guy. They're older, yes, but it's a trip back in time for them. And they come in and they can come up to the table, they can talk to you like a person and say, hey, I remember you back, when you wrestled so-and-so and so-and-so in Cincinnati or in Atlanta or Tampa or somewhere. And I like people that come up and say, "Hey, remember me?" And I always remember them. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember you. Your name is," and then they'll tell me. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember you." He said, "Oh, it was in Savannah or somewhere." And I said, "Oh, I still remember that." Hell, I can't remember it, but still, at the same time, I told him I remembered him. Now I gave my secret away, and people said, "You don't remember me, you lying bastard." But they come to talk, and that's when they come to realize that wrestlers are people too. We're all people. And we got into wrestling, and John says because we liked it, we loved it at times, hated it at times, but still we did it, and we did it well. Some of us, not me, of course, but some of them did.
Is this really bad?
I watched the ones that were good and try to get better.
Is this really bad? Someone said to me the other day, I was out, I can't even remember where, and they said, "I remember you from some bar so-and-so." And I went, "Cool. I don't remember you."
Yeah.
I can't be... Is it just age? I can't be bothered going through the pretense. It's like, I have no memory of you. And then you're like, "Oh, I hung around with so-and-so, and God, I hated that person. And you were friends with him?" Oh, no wonder I don't remember you.
How old are you now?
38.
Okay.
I'm getting to that point, Dutch. I can't stay this amazing, or the entire time.
Well, you're not there yet, so
I'll fall apart soon, I'm sure.
And you know what I think goes first?
Oh yeah.
I think that's what goes first.
Not for you though, really. You haven't even lost any colour out of your hair.
Well, I'm different, but my body's beat all to hell. So don't even touch me. If you see me walking somewhere, don't even put a finger on me. I may just tumble over. Then you'd really feel bad. Then if I saw some gold rings on your hand and some, your nice, expensive outfit, then the next you hear from my lawyer for pushing me.
Yeah. Was it Dewey Cheatham Howell? Who's your lawyer? Adam Burbrower. I remember his name.
Oh yeah, that is right.
That you never contact. You always say, "I'm going to contact him for legal advice," and you never hear from him.
Oh, he writes me every now and then. Oh, I'm going to contact him. I got some questions I got to ask him.
Well,
so Mr. Burbrower, if you're listening, which he is, he's a big fan, and he's from New York State. So I'm going to contact him and talk over a little bit of an issue and see what he says.
Yeah, Dutch needs more cigars. That's the issue. Right, we're going to move on. WrestleMania 42 has changed locations back, we believe, to Las Vegas. So, in a surprise turn of events, WWE has a new location for WrestleMania 42. It's the same one as 41. It was going to be in New Orleans. The Rock went into whichever WWE show it was, went into the ring, announced that WrestleMania was going to New Orleans, and then they just decided it wasn't. So what do you know about this before I blather on?
I think this is the big one. I think, they had that shooting in New Orleans about a month or two ago.
Did they?
Oh, a guy rode down the street and was shooting people and running them over and everything.
Okay.
And
there's so many. I mean, that one didn't make the news over here.
Well, I think that's one reason, maybe. And the French Quarter, it's tight. I mean, it's not, you're not supposed to have cars on those streets. It's you walk in the French Quarter, especially where all the bars are. But I think that's one reason they transferred back. And I think Las Vegas, this is what I'm hearing, is their business is down.
The other reasons we're presuming they want to go to Las Vegas is because lots of the executives really like Las Vegas, and Nick Khan grew up there, partially.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and also I figure they're going to get a huge incentive to return to Las Vegas. And apparently the state of Nevada or whoever, whatever commission or whoever that pays these people, or the city of Las Vegas will pay millions more to WWE than New Orleans probably will to get them in. And the current idea is if the Las Vegas doesn't have, a Super Bowl or, a finals, some like major sporting finals that year, they want to have WrestleMania. So, like every 3 years, WrestleMania is probably going to emanate from Las Vegas, at least for the short term.
And WrestleMania is 4 days, 5 days, maybe. It's almost a week.
Yeah, these days, yeah.
They're trying to extend it. So they're going to have people there for day after day after day. They have to eat. They're going to buy stuff. They're going to gamble. And they're going to rent hotel rooms. And they're going to rent cars. So, when you put 70,000 or 75,000 people, or how many people they can put in that stadium, that's a big windfall of money for them at that. And I think they will go back to Vegas. Vegas may become the spot for it. Like almost, now I wouldn't say every year, but they could probably, out of the next 10 years, they could probably hook 4 of them anyway, maybe 5.
It's the thing, though. I mean, how much money do they need? I mean, it only really benefits.
That's what I read about TKO. TKO has gotten all of a sudden money crazy because they got that cash cow sitting out there. They got WWE sitting out there. And, a lot of people told them, "Oh, I wouldn't buy that. Don't go with that." But yeah, they misrepresent the reckoning and the force of WWE fans. They're all over the world. And I think we're going to see WWE. They're going to be going to these other countries more. And okay, here's my fear. One of these planes, and I hate this to come to fruition, you like that word. What if it was hijacked with a bunch of WWE wrestlers on the plane? So you think that would be big news?
Probably.
I mean, it would be big news just being hijacked anyway. But to have the WWE guys on there,
Would it be funny if they tried to hijack Crockett's plane?
Well, you couldn't get on it first. It wasn't that big. But hey, he was one of the trips. He would rent that plane. It seated about, I don't know, 15 guys, I guess. And and people would actually beg to get on the plane to keep from driving. See, some of those long trips, like 300 miles. So if you could fly it, it's like an hour. If you drove it, it's like 6 hours. And you got back on the plane at like 1 o'clock in the morning. If you drove it, you got back about 4. So there was a long line to get on that plane. And I'm not ashamed to admit this. I've actually begged to get on the plane. JJ Dillon was in charge of booking who was on it. And I say, "Please, JJ, please let me go." And he go, "Okay." And he'd get on the phone and said, "All right, put Dutch on the list."
Would Jaggers come with you?
Who?
Would Bobby Jaggers go with you?
Oh, he'd go. I was begging for both of us.
Oh, okay.
But with his permission, of course.
Just to go to Las Vegas one more time. So, as I say, my brother's there. He says it's unbelievably expensive, and I hear that time and time again. This like last 5-10 years, the prices of everything on the strip is so high now that's another reason why Las Vegas tourism is going down. It's just because going to Vegas isn't, even if you don't gamble, is just absolutely ruinous. Like, you can spend hundreds on a dinner, and it wouldn't even be a particularly nice dinner, for a couple of people.
But I think also that's the type of fan WWE is looking for.
Well, the people who will pay for a steak dinner.
If you got the money to go to Vegas, you got money to buy the merchandise, you got money to pay the ticket, you got money for the flights and the rooms, you got money for the entertainment.
Now, it's not actually confirmed that they're going to be in Vegas because they've moved the date of WrestleMania 42 up a week. It was initially going to be like the 11th and 12th, and now it's going to be like, I don't know, the 18th, 19th, whatever it's going to be. But a week beforehand, or a few days beforehand, there's a concert already booked for Allegiant Stadium. And now WWE are not only in negotiations to buy out whatever contracts, to leave New Orleans and take WrestleMania to Las Vegas, but they also need to get rid of this concert because it's too close to WrestleMania and they need more time to, set up all the staging and stuff like that. So it's just, all this has done is just sort of create a massive administrative headache that they're upset that's even been made public.
Okay, what group is in there?
It's not
right before WWE.
It's not been announced. It's not been made public, so we don't know. It's got to be fairly big though if they're running a stadium.
No kidding. Anyway, good luck to them.
Yep,
but if anybody can get it done, guess what? WWE can get it done.
Absolutely. Now, Vince McMahon is refusing to operate in a misconduct lawsuit. So I'm going to give you the short version of this, I'm afraid, Dutch, because there's an awful lot of writing. This is from WrestleNomics. Anyway, Vince McMahon is pushing back against efforts to force him to turn over more documents in a shareholder lawsuit over the TKO merger, arguing that the plaintiffs are overreaching and trying to use the case to pry into his personal life. In a filing in Delaware court, McMahon's attorneys asked the court to deny the plaintiff's motion to compel further discovery. Now, the lawsuit is filed against McMahon and other directors of the WWE board at this time, not the company itself. But the lawyers have stated that the theory is meritless, why they want more information, and that he's already agreed to produce all documents that connect to the sexual misconduct allegations to the merger process. But the former WWE chairman and CEO is drawing the line at turning over what he calls deeply personal and intimate communications with women he had relationships with and messages with family members about those relationships. According to the filing, McMahon's legal representatives say those materials are irrelevant to the case, which they argue is about fiduciary duty, whether shareholders got a fair deal in 2023. Okay, so do you actually know what this lawsuit is about? Because I'm going to tell you right now.
They want him to turn over all these other records.
Yes, that's part of the lawsuit, but the lawsuit is actually brought on. It's a class action lawsuit against WWE because they've got a theory that Vince McMahon, instead of selling to Saudi Arabia or Viacom or whoever else, where it would have been more beneficial to the stockholders, they would have got more money.
Yeah,
Vince McMahon merged with the UFC, where he didn't get any money for it. It was a straight merger. And the lawsuit is saying that instead of doing best by the stockholders, Vince McMahon instead went with the UFC because the UFC top brass were more likely to keep Vince on as an executive. So therefore, their lawsuit is saying that Vince McMahon was self-serving in that respect. What do you make of that?
I don't know how they could prove that. Just to call somebody, hey, I don't know anything about the law, except I know the term unlawful. I know that, but I'm gonna have to side with Vince on this. I think whether or not they're trying to determine his motives for selling and trying to put this on it and this on it, I don't think they can prove that. That's an assumption. I would imagine. So. Of course, a businessman tries to find the best deal, not only for the company, but for himself. So I don't see that he broke any kind of rule or regulation there.
Yeah, I sort of think he could argue. I think he could argue that, I was doing the best for the long-term health of the company instead of selling it to the highest bidder.
Yeah, and you can't, how are you going to prove that is not true? You can't. It's assumption.
Well, that's why they want all the text messages and privileged communication so they can go fishing and see if Vince had ever said in one of these emails.
That's exactly what. Hey, stick to what they charged him with, the sexual stuff they could prove and have somebody testify. But this other stuff is well, we're gonna try to determine his state of mind. I don't know how you do that. I don't. Hey, I watched a lot of Perry Mason when I was growing up, so I know the law.
What about Kojak?
I did watch Kojak, but his bald head bothered me.
Do you know my dad used to love watching LA Law?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of his favourites. Right, I can add a little more. McMahon argues that the misconduct allegations were already public at the time and known to prospective buyers, including Endeavour, and that the plaintiffs already have access to that timeline for public records. He says he's agreed to turn over communication that speak to his motivation, including those discussing his potential role in the post-merger company. So I think what the lawsuit or what the discovery or the attempt to dragging out of Vince is more privileged communications that relate more to the sexual misconduct and how.
But in even looking at that and looking for something else, they will find something else other than what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I
Maybe
think
that's what they want. Maybe they want to find something they're looking for.
That's what they want. And if I was in Vince's position, I would claim the same thing. Of course, I don't like what he did, and we know what he did. And he did it over and over and over again. But for them to do that, I think that kind of infringes on his rights a little bit. So,
right.
Hey, they'll work it out.
They'll work it out. Right, next one. Alberto Del Rio, or Alberto El Patron, as he's known now.
Say his name right.
Del Rio.
You got to roll the R. Del Rio. I used to do that, and Vince would go nuts. He'd say, tell him to say his name over and over. Alberto Del Rio. He loved that.
Well, you know how WWE was sneaking over the border to buy up AAA?
He loved that too. He's sneaking across the border.
For those who don't know, that's Zeb Coulter, what Dutch Mantell used to do on WWE. He used to say that about Alberto Del Rio. Right, so it's only taken WWE a few weeks to apparently start interfering in AAA affairs after saying that they absolutely would not be interfering in AAA affairs. What do you think of that?
Yep.
Are you surprised?
Well, no, I'm not. But this is the first time I've heard about this thing you're going to bring up.
Yeah, indeed. So, only a few weeks after, WWE bought AAA, there's going to be a WWE and AAA Worlds Collide pay-per-view on June the 7th in Inglewood, California. It's the same day as Money in the Bank, but it's different times. Obviously, they're not going to run against themselves, I suppose. This is going to feature, we think probably in the main event, or, if not in the main event, very close to it, El Hijo del Vikingo versus Chad Gable. So what, I hear you ask? Well,
yeah.
What's the problem here? Okay. WWE Raw last night. The match was billed as a title bout, Chad versus Vikingo, for the AAA Mega Championship, which is their top title. Here's the problem. Vikingo is not the title holder. Alberto El Patron is. So, in the Mexican version of WWE Raw, which was broadcast on Netflix across the world, but on the Mexican version, they cut out the bit where they said it would be for the main title. But in the American version, and the UK version, I believe as well, they said it was a title match. And for some reason, the top brass in WWE thought this would not get out to Mexico in 2025 with internet.
Oh, wait a minute. Who determined this? The top brass at TKO?
Yeah, or WWE at least, yeah.
TKO, they may be big-time dealers and big-time companies, but that's a simple fact. You got to look at that. And they got fans, and they're all talking right now. And they don't want that publicity, but it's by their own mistake that they brought it out there.
WWE has, made this public. And wouldn't you believe now, and I bet this is going to stun you, is that this weekend there is a AAA Mega Championship match between Alberto El Patron versus Vikingo. I bet you cannot believe it.
That is stunning. That is... I expect some fireworks at that show.
You going to tune it?
Alberto is pretty stubborn.
Yeah, what if he just said, no, I'm not doing it? I mean, obviously he'd be fired.
Oh, he could do that. He might be saying it right now. Unless he's got a deal in place, he could say, I'm not doing it, period. I'm just not.
He has. WWE signed him.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. So they gave all the power to Alberto that he wants to deal at such and such an amount, then he'll do it. Which is basically just doing business. And I can't blame him there either.
So we don't know what's going to happen, obviously, because it's going to be this weekend, but we are very much presuming that Vikingo is going to win the title and then defend it against Chad Gable or El Grande Americano, whichever one he turns up as. But here's the thing. I was trying to think of when this has happened before, where companies have absolutely telegraphed that somebody is going to win a world title. And maybe one of the most famous ones was Randy Savage at WrestleMania 4, where I don't know if it was some sort of program or they released it to newspapers, the results of WrestleMania 4, before the show had happened.
Good. I'll tell you who else did it, and it's well publicized.
Go on.
Jeff Jarrett in China.
Yeah, of course.
He made Vince give him his, a bunch of money and his WrestleMania payoff and this, that, and the other, and it had to be a certain amount before he would put China over. You remember that, don't you?
1999. I remember it very well. He was the IC title holder, and his contract expired like that day or the day before, probably the day before.
Yeah.
And they always say that they held up, Jeff Jarrett held up Vince for so-and-so money or he wasn't going to show up. But the way Jeff says it, it was like $150,000 or something like that. And it was essentially 3 months' worth of pay that he hadn't already been paid, including merchandise royalties, pay-per-view bonuses, that kind of thing. So was it a hold-up? Was it not a hold-up? But they sure made it obvious that he was losing.
Well, what happened on the pay-per-view, you didn't get paid for the pay-per-view for like 3 months.
Yeah. Because
they had to get the cable company or, the pay-per-view company would have to wait till all the money was in. Then they divide it, and then it would take time for that to get out. He wanted it all in one clip. He wanted it at one time, and they gave in to him. It's not like he held them up for his own money. But I don't know. I've never asked him about it because I don't think he'd tell me anyway. It's his business. So, and Jeff always kept his business kind of close to the vest, and he wouldn't let everybody else know what he's doing, which is smart. And his daddy taught him that. But yeah, he did kind of hold Vince up. And Vince did it. He paid him, but I would say I need this in cash. They could write you a check and then cancel it. Just say we didn't write that check. So a lot of things should happen, but I think that was the one I remember.
Next up, we're going to go to WWE Raw, and this is Penta. Chad Gable certainly got away with a couple of near injurious situations on this show yesterday as we record this. Did you watch it?
Oh, I did watch that. I went, who come up with that stupid move? That's a Mexican move. You know that.
That is something that the wrestlers absolutely came up with themselves.
Man. And it's made for guys who weigh like 170 pounds. And Chad Gable, he didn't weigh much more than that, but he was in a position, and I don't know if the fans have seen this.
Well, why don't we watch it together? Let's watch it together. How about that?
Okay, let's watch it.
Okay, so we've got it teed up. Yes, sorry, Dutch.
That's a double pile driver, correct?
I don't even know what it is at the moment, but here's what it is. One sec.
I've never seen it before. Oh my God! Wow.
So he's got Dragon Lee on his back.
Oh, it's not a pile driver.
Oh man. Just look at where his head lands. That's got neck breaker all, like broken neck all through. He's even got his head looking up.
Ooh, man. All I can say, wow, look at that neck.
Yeah.
Man, they're lucky. They dodged the bullet on that one, or Chad did, because his head went down sideways, brother. And how old is Chad? He's in his mid-30s, right? Maybe.
Yeah, mid-30s sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's still young enough that he's supple. Let me say that. He can probably escape injury, but they dodged the bullet on that one.
Yeah, in fact, 39. In fact, he is.
Yeah, but he's not to where he's when you get in the 40s is when you get stiffened up, I think.
Yeah.
But
I think because obviously, he was a high-level amateur wrestler.
yeah,
Neck work and all that kind of thing could have played a part in avoiding more serious injury.
yeah. But I'm saying, okay, in the back, when these guys see the agent comes in, this is what happens. The agent comes in and he calls the two guys together, in this case, the three guys together, and says, this is what we want the finish to be. Not necessarily that move, but they say they want Penta over. Okay. And Penta comes up with that idea, and they all have to agree to it. I guess Chad, I don't think Chad, he might not agree to this move the next time. But and I'm sure this is the first time I've ever seen this move. It is a dangerous move. I would think that if they knew it was going to look like that, they would have brought the gurney out for Mr. Chad Gable and took him back. I think some moves that you see, guys kick out of them. So they actually ruin the move the first time they use it. It's because the guy just gets up and like nothing has happened. But if he lays there and he sells it, and I was reading a comment about Kevin Nash registering and selling, very different entities, very different meanings. Everybody kind of registers, but to sell and to convince the people that hurt you, that's what takes a little work. But when they saw this and they play it over and over and over, yeah, he got hurt. But now, and I bet he didn't settle it at all. He just rolled over there and got up and took off.
Yeah, basically. It didn't, lead
and did the same thing he was going to do anyway.
Yeah, it didn't lead to the
But
finish.
that's how they finished. And that's what I'm saying. That's a wasted move. But I think the agent, and there's no way for the agent to know it was going to be like a botch.
Well, here's the question. I mean, surely you've got to run things like this past the agents, or do you not have to?
No, you have to. Because when the match is going on, the agent sits down at the go position. And there's a chair that is occupied by different people all night long. Whoever the agent of the match is, he's sitting right there at the go position with two other guys. And one is the timer, and one is he controls the board and everything. And the agent is watching everything. But they have to clear this. See, the agent is having to tell the truck, the main guy that's talking to the cameraman, okay, watch this, watch this, watch this. And that's how they're really getting good shots now. Remember how they used to miss a lot of shots? They're getting them now. And I would say, and this was Saturday night main event, right?
No, this was Raw last night as we record this.
Oh, Raw last night. Okay. I didn't watch Raw last night, so that's why. But anyway, the agent is sitting there and he has to have knowledge of everything that they're going to do beforehand. And they had to run this by him. And of course, in defense of the agent, they act like they know what they're doing. And they probably have to go into the ring and show the agent exactly what it is. And they may have done that. But when they got in the ring and all of a sudden they think they were going to miss it, or Penta did, and he got a little sloppy. And I'm not putting it on Penta, but it was Penta and Chad, and they got it screwed up, and he almost got hurt. He's lucky he didn't get hurt, and I'm glad he didn't, but he's a tough guy.
I've got a question for you. Penta is billed at 207 pounds. What is he doing like Superman strength spots at that weight? Well, he obviously can't do it.
I don't know. Okay, but let's take this back to the...
Just while you sneeze, Dutch, as well, I want to say, I mean, he obviously can't do it, and even if he could do it, it wouldn't even make any sense in storyline to do it.
Yeah. But I don't know why he would do that, and I don't even know, but he obviously cleared it with the agent, and they probably went through it for the agent. I just said that, but it was a botch. but it was a botch that looked like it could have killed him. That's what I'm saying.
Right, we're going to go to, because you mentioned it a couple of times, Saturday night's main event. Before we get to a couple of the matches that you want to talk about, I know this, we've got to talk about Jesse Ventura. He is out of his mind at the moment. He's getting worse every episode.
I'm going to call him up and tell him you said that. Okay, go ahead. He's getting worse.
Did you notice this, or was it just?
Yeah, I did.
Was it just me? I mean, right, okay, so he's getting more out of control every single episode. At the last one, he kept making up a story about, I can't even remember what it was. I mean, like maybe it was a kick out at 2 that he absolutely said was a 3 when it clearly wasn't. And he just wouldn't, and he kept harping on and harping on and harping on about it, to the point he was starting to ruin the match. I can't even remember what the match was. This time, he and Joe Tessitore at the beginning of the show are talking about the cage match, because Jesse's only going to be doing commentary for that one match. And for whatever reason, Joe Tessitore says, we were having coffee this morning and discussing this match. And the first thing Jesse says is, I hate coffee. And then just completely no-sells it and then moves on. But then he starts saying, no one's going to be walking out of this cage. There will be a winner. He must have known that that was the finish. That somebody was going to walk out the cage. And then during the match itself, Jesse goes on and on and on about how nobody's getting out of the cage, and that there were no cage matches on Saturday night's main event back on NBC back in the 80s because they were too dangerous. Here's the thing. Michael Cole had just gone on saying that Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff and Hulk Hogan versus Big Boss Man, 2 of the most famous cage matches in WWF history, were both on Saturday night's main event. And to make matters worse, Jesse Ventura commentated for them both. And then now Jesse's making up that there were no cage matches. Like he was there.
Didn't I say earlier in the show, the brain goes before the body sometimes? And I think that Jesse, truthfully, does not remember it. I think that he's trying to think back and saying, did they have them or not? And I don't think he thought that deeply on it, but I think he just forgot.
No, Michael Cole just said that they did. And then Jesse Ventura followed it up with, no, they didn't.
It don't matter. It don't matter. Jesse's not listening anyway, probably. No. And all they want out there is Jesse's voice. When you hear Jesse's voice, he has a voice that even 40 years later, or whatever it is, you can still tell it's Jesse Ventura. He doesn't look like he did at the time, but still, it's still Jesse Ventura's voice, and it's a voice from the past. Like if somebody tunes in, you remember if you were a kid, and now you're much older now, and you're maybe probably ready to retire, but you still remember Jesse Ventura's voice. It never changes. And that's one thing on a person that never changes. I've noticed this. Their looks change, their weight changes, and their health changes. The voice really never changes, right or not?
Mm-hmm. For the most part, I mean, like when you hit your 70s and 80s, especially for a singer, and you've blown your voice out. Rob Van Dam's he's not a singer, but he's a great example of someone whose voice sounds completely different because of decades of smoking weed.
Yeah, well,
but for the most part, the voice stays mostly the same until old age, yeah.
Oh, it does. I think that's what I've asked, and people have agreed with me. Oh, yeah, you're right. Like Vince McMahon, you would recognize that voice anywhere. Stone Cold Steve Austin, you would recognize the voice anywhere. Who else would you say?
Oh, so many. There were so many, but obviously, voices change like with everything else, but not as markedly, I guess, as looks for the most part. But let's mention one more thing about
Jesse.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. But didn't they have Jesse when they brought back Saturday Night Main Event? Did they have Jesse out there for all of it?
All 3 so far, yeah, they've had him.
But Jesse doesn't do the whole show.
No, he does one match.
And that's been on all the shows.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He only does one match. It would be nice, to cue him in on some of the facts before he did it, because I'm presuming he's getting paid an awful lot of money. But he just, I'm sure he doesn't watch. But, for the amount he's paid, it'd be nice for him to watch a bit.
Yeah, well, they're paying him a pretty good sum to sit out there for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, they really are.
And to show up on the day of the event and sit out there for 20 minutes. I'd do it.
With that being said, Damian Priest ended up winning the match in as dominant a fashion as anybody's won a cage match in WWE in decades. It was absolutely comprehensive. And he walks out the cage door. And then Jesse says that Damian Priest was a coward for walking out the door, and then he seems surprised that you could even walk out of a door in a cage match, despite the fact that that's been the rule for 100 years.
That's what I'm saying. He's forgotten all this stuff. Wait a minute. That's my opinion only. So I can't say for sure, but that's what I'm surmising.
No, but he's called anyway. I know he doesn't remember it, but he's called matches where Hulk Hogan or whoever has walked out the cage door, probably including WrestleMania 2 with King Kong Bundy, where he probably walked out the cage door. I think was the finish. Anyway,
so he left. Damian Priest left.
Yep.
Drew McIntyre laying.
Yep.
He looked dead.
He's injured as well, apparently, Drew. He's going to be taking a bit of time off. I think it's just accumulation
let
of
him
wear
take some
and tear.
time off. And this is what I think how a cage match should end. One guy walks out, and he's selling, not registering, he's selling. That what a brutal contest it was. And the other guy is selling because he's not moving. That to me was a good finish. There's no doubt on it. Drew's taking some time off. And then when he gets better, 6 weeks, 2 months, he comes back. Then they can restart it or not. I don't think they're going to restart it because they about wore this one out. I mean, it was week and week and week and week. And then finally you say enough. So now it's finished now. Damian Priest can start something with something else. And Drew McIntyre can go and have a good rest that he deserves.
Other matches on the card, we're going to talk about one more. John Cena versus R-Truth. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we saw John Cena put R-Truth through a table at the post pay-per-view press conference. Was it for Backlash? I think it was for Backlash. You found it hilarious. And then I said, I bet they're doing a title match at Saturday night's main event. And I got loads of comments saying, no, they're not. And it's like, yeah, of course they are. Like, you can see it from a mile off. Anyway, that's what they did. You watched the match. R-Truth doing his John Cena impression, all a bit of fun, a short match and everything. What did you think?
Well, let me say one thing about Tampa. That crowd was red hot all night long. That was a red hot crowd. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, R-Truth has 5 moves and one of them's a punch. So, I mean, as Cena does. He has 5 moves, but they good finish. I don't think the crowd was disappointed. But I did I predict on this show that we'll see Cody Rhodes? Did I predict it here?
Maybe.
I predicted it somewhere. And I think it was in the other show I said, no, we're not going to see him that soon. I said, well, what else are you going to, when they're going to bring you back? This would be the best time for him to show up. And Cody showed up and the crowd went through the roof. Now I'm not the biggest fan of Cody, but he is over. And it's not up to me. If the fans are buying him, good. He's found him a hell of a spot. And he came in there and boom, 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 and the crowd went wild. And now we've set it up. And now he will continue the story. And now I think they're kind of back on track because I was watching SmackDown Friday and it was kind of boring because they were using a lot of guys that really haven't been pushed or they've done anything with. And like one is Aleister Black because did I talk about him last week?
No, but I wish you pronounce it like that more.
What do you say that? How do you say the
Alistair? I know they spell it a weird way. Yeah, they added like an extra E in, but I like that you say Aleister.
Well, that's what I'd actually called him that just and said, Aleister, come here. That's not that. How do you say his name again?
Just Alistair.
Alistair. But anyway, but I compared him to Karrion Kross. I don't see them on the current trajectory of really getting over. I have an idea. Why don't we put those two together and see what we can come up with? I guess it's no reflection on his ability in the ring, Mr. Black. His ability in the ring, he's good. He's very good. I'm thinking about, what is he supposed to be? What is he?
Oh, generally dark, half occultist, that kind of thing. I don't know if it's
Does
that
it
well
appeal
defined.
to you?
No.
No, me either. And I don't know. Anyway, they can do what they want to do. He had a good match, but anyway.
We're going to be talking about SmackDown in a short while. Actually, just before we do, I just picked up on something you said before. You said you weren't that big of a fan of Cody Rhodes. What's he missing for you then?
Well, I'm trying to think. Okay, when he comes down the aisle, when they introduce him, he does this, he puts his hand down, he does this, and he spends an extraordinary amount of time playing to the people, which is part of the job. I got that. But I just think he takes too long to get to the ring.
He takes too long on the entrances, but is it just a disconnect for you? Is it just something just missing from him?
To me, it is, and I can't even piece it together. But it's not up to me; it's up to the fans. If they buy him, good. I figure out a lot of stuff for him. But when he hit that ring, and I liked the way he really ran into the ring, he was wanting to get there. Because when he got there, and they saw it was him, and that first punch, in Puerto Rico, when the babyface makes a comeback, I swear to God, every time they hit you, they go. And as soon as he stops, they stop. And sometimes it can be ear splitting. So that's what that crowd sounded like in Tampa.
What about R-Truth then? Have you ever talked about R-Truth? Because you worked with him for years in TNA. You worked with him in WWE as well.
Well, I was with him in WWE. Nice guy. Funny guy. He's always laughing, always a smile on his face. It's like, hey, man, I'm just happy to be here. And apparently he's convinced the heads at WWE that he is somebody good to have around. And he'd been there like 20 years, right? More.
He debuted in 2000. And then
25
he left.
Years?
Yeah, he left for.
But he went to TNA. He was there in 2001, 2002, and something like that.
Yeah, he was there 2002. He was with TNA for like 6 years, and then he went back again. So yeah, he's been consistently hired for 25 years.
And I don't know who liked him. I guess Vince did, but they kept him around. And that guy is really, really a talent. I like when he does the split leg sit down. That takes some talent. I could never do that. I could never get up, but good guy. I don't think he drank. I don't think he did any drugs. I don't think he even smoked any weed. I don't know. I always kind of kept to himself and stayed out of trouble.
Yeah. He's eternally youthful. It's annoying.
Yeah, he to see him today and see him 20 years ago, you can't tell a difference. I don't think. Can you?
But a tiny bit, I guess, but very little. I mean, when he debuted, he was like nearly 30 in WWF. Do you want that young?
How old is R-Truth now?
He's 53.
Wow.
Yeah. And he seems to be able to move almost as well as he could, when he was, 20 years younger. But I wanted to also mention, John Cena looks like he's suffering. He really looks like, he's moving slow. His knees look like hurt. There's one bit at the end where he attacked R-Truth with the belt. And then he was on the apron, then he jumped down. And you could see his face where he goes, like that, with his knees. I was like, man, John Cena looks like he's suffering.
Well, he may be suffering. If he looks like that, he's not 100%. And isn't most wrestlers' knees, even though they think they're okay, they've been damaged because all that time in the ring and all that jumping around and doing all that stuff, it takes its toll. So didn't bother me much, but
No, your knees never were that bad then.
no, I'm a tough bastard. So
Doesn't it strike you as just unfair sometimes that John Cena, they're roughly the same age. John Cena's a few years younger, I think, but John Cena, did the same amount of work that R-Truth did, but, he's struggling to move around or moves in great pain, and R-Truth just seems to just bound through every match, has a great time, and doesn't seem outwardly hurting.
Also, when's the last time Cena had a match? R-Truth, really. Both of them haven't had a match. I mean, a consistent series of matches for what, years?
R-Truth, I think, wrestles fairly frequently, but John Cena didn't wrestle. John Cena hasn't had like a full-time schedule since like maybe 2018 or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, but hey, what they did, they carried out the story, continued the story, and they did a credible job with it because they were waiting for something to happen in that match. And everybody knew that R-Truth was going to be on the short end of the stick here. He didn't get pinned, did he?
Yeah.
He did get pinned.
He got pinned.
Okay. He got pinned. And all of a sudden he started in on him again because he's going to kill wrestling, according to John Cena. And here comes Cody. And here comes the savior on the white horse, and he got in the ring and cleared it up, and the roof came off. And then that's when they ended it, right?
Yeah. Well, he ends up getting a belt, over the head, and then the main event ended up being Jey Uso and Logan Paul, which will just before we get to that, I want to make mention that you're actually right about R-Truth, is that from July of 2024. He's averaged one match a month. Before then, he was wrestling fairly frequently. But this last year, he's been wrestling maybe one match a month. So, I mean, obviously, he's going to be winding down. But he's at more shows just as just to be backstage. I always think R-Truth, I figure anyway, is that he's just somebody who they pay just to have in the locker room because he's great for morale.
Yep, he is. Very good. That's a good job to have, too.
Yeah. Oh, he's got to be making seven figures. I mean, that long. He's been with WWE so long, I bet he's making seven figures now.
Wow. Just to show up?
Maybe. That's my theory, yeah.
Wow.
Right, so the main event of Saturday night's main event was Jey Uso versus Logan Paul for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, Jey had everything well in hand, splashed Logan Paul, about to get the win, and then the referees pulled out of the ring by John Cena. This is apparently now, and then obviously, as you mentioned, Cody Rhodes runs out to make the save. Jey Uso gets the win clean, I guess, with the splash the second time. And then it looks to be a tag match. It's going to be Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus Logan Paul and John Cena at WWE Money in the Bank next month. But,
okay, now I saw this. Now I have it confused. So this is when Cena goes into the match. Yeah, you're right. He pulls him out. You're right.
Yeah, sorry, John Cena was there twice, so as not to confuse. But there's been a theory, and I know how much you like theories.
Oh, I love theory.
Is that the tag match for Money in the Bank might actually end up being a trios match instead. So it'd be Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes, whoever the third guy is, whether it's CM Punk or somebody else, versus John Cena, Logan Paul, and Travis Scott.
I don't like it already. You're involving a guy that, to me,
makes Jimmy Hart look buff.
No kidding. What I'm saying, you're involving him in a match. He has no training whatsoever. Now, he doesn't even need to be at ringside for these guys, but they're going to put him in a match. And what do you think the people are going to thinking? That's who they're going to pin. And there's no mystique to it. And I hate matches like this. And I guarantee you, they'll get to him one time, and that'll be at the end. And then they'll pin him, and then he'll be out of the way. And fans can figure this out. and then they'll go ahead and do what else they're going to do.
I see the opposite way.
Travis, I don't think Travis
Scott will get the pin. Travis will win.
No, I don't think so.
WWE and celebrities, man, they. I always like the word obsequious. They fawn over celebrities.
Well, if I was the guy getting pinned by Travis Scott, I don't care what they've done to me. They could have shot me in the leg and in the gut and everything else. They can pin me. But I think Travis Scott pinning me, how does that help anything?
Well, indeed.
I mean, I've seen crazy stuff done. Hey, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. But I would say, just to go back in wrestling history, that would seem like what they do. Nobody would expect Travis Scott getting the pin at all. Who would he get the pin over then?
Well, I got the report slightly wrong. So there was Cody Rhodes. The theory is Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, and maybe Jimmy Uso. So, I mean, Jimmy Uso doesn't have much steam behind him at the moment, so I guess they could pin him, but that's like the obvious thing to do if you're going to have Travis Scott win. But, I mean, that's the first thing I thought is, Travis Scott was going to get beaten up, at the end of the match, tease it all the way, and then at some point, the others do the damage, and then they throw Travis Scott's lifeless body onto Cody or Jay or whoever it might be.
Better to end it on a happy note, then do your story. That's what I would think.
Okay, next up, Wyatt 6 returns. Now, you're never a fan of Bray Wyatt. You're not a fan of the Wyatt 6. Let's go through this. WWE SmackDown this past Friday, the Wyatt 6, who have been away from WWE for months thanks to an injury sustained by Bo Dallas, a.k.a. Uncle Howdy, made their surprise return to WWE when they attacked the Street Profits and Fraxium in the main event of SmackDown. Why was that even the main event? That's not a main event match.
Hey, I got a lot of problems with this match. Fraxium, it didn't grab me at all. I don't even know what the name means. Fraxium. What is that?
It's a combination of their two names.
Fraxium.
Yeah.
But for a kid, Fraxium, he doesn't associate it with anybody. If he has to go ahead and do research on it, he might as well be in school.
Well, it's Axiom and Nathan Frazier. So it's
Axiom.
Portmanteau. Yeah, so it's a portmanteau.
What is it? But okay, for a kid, 8, 9 years old, what does axiom mean?
It means that Carlos Ruiz, born May 9th, 1997, goes by the name Axiom in WWE.
No, it means axiom has a meaning. Right?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
but
it's
anyway,
the A-Kid. How have I never known that before? I know the A-Kid. Good. Jesus. Never put two and two together.
Hey, this is kind of when I turned off from the show, from SmackDown. Was it SmackDown?
Yep, it was SmackDown. And at the end of it, the Wyatt 6 turned back up after months of having no explanation of disappearing off WWE TV. What do you think of the reintroduction of them?
Well, I don't know what they can do with them. I think it's just something they're going to bring out every now and then so they can cut the lights off and all of a sudden look up and they're in the ring. I don't know who they're going to run these guys against. When you see the Wyatts, what do you think? You know the story, but what do you think? You want to see them? You want to see them go against anybody?
Oh, I guess what is their motivation?
Do you want to get anybody to get even with them? I think they got still a long way to go. And Bo Dallas, I think it would probably be better if they kind of concentrated on him with two people around him. And who are those other two guys that I've never seen before?
There's 5 of them.
That's what I'm saying. But they got the girl who is at what's her name?
Let me just get the full list. The Wyatt 6 is, because I know I'll forget one. It's Eric Rowan, Dexter Loomis, Joe Gacy, who's now Huskus the Pig, and Nikki Cross. And it was Alexa Bliss, but now apparently Alexa Bliss isn't in the Wyatt Six or not associated with him because she disappeared for months and then turned back up and then disappeared and then
what's the big red-headed guy with the red beard? What's his name?
That's Eric Rowan.
Okay.
He was in the original Wyatt family, as you remember.
But
why are they so hard to book? I mean,
Dexter Loomis, I think, is a character that they need to break out. Because I talked to him in TNA and I've seen some of his work. He's the one that doesn't talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot to him. If they would just, I'm not saying not right now, but I think eventually we will see Dexter Loomis get some kind of attention, and I think he'll get over a little bit. I really do. But I think the Wyatt Six better, Bo Dallas, kind of by himself, and maybe with a girl with him or Rowan with him. And I think you might have a little business out of there. But I don't know where they're going to take it.
Are there too many? Is that one of the things?
Where is it to go? I mean, when you see something, say you see two guys. So you immediately say, well, wait a minute. What if he turned on him? That's something. I don't care what it is. But I don't think if the only thing you could do is turn Rowan on Bo and then see what you got. But for how long? 2 matches, and that's it. I don't think the interest is there. But again, I don't think they're really counting on that. It's just something different for the kids and hit work for one night. So, and I thought it was a pretty good show, actually, all around. I thought it was.
Do you remember, right? So when the Wyatt Six was announced and was coming back, and then they did a couple of weeks of sit-down interviews, they were really well produced and really well performed. And, Bo Dallas did several weeks' worth where he was being interviewed by himself, etc. And you said at the time, or I think you said at the time anyway, these vignettes are really well done. But if I was booking, I would have no clue what to do with them. Because you said even at the time, that's actually what I'm getting at is even at the time you said, I have no idea what to do with these guys. They've either got to be main event or they've got to be the dominant faction in the company. And therefore I don't know how to book them. Or they're just going to be mired on the undercard and therefore they're not special.
Yeah, that's right.
And I always want, so in your opinion, what makes them so difficult to book successfully?
Well, you just said it. There's 5 of them.
So five's too many for that group.
5 is too many. 3's almost too many. And of course, who made the number 3 was the Fabulous Freebirds. They kind of brought the threesomes into the concept. And I hate trio matches anyway. And I don't know how you could build the story. See, I never understood really the Bray Wyatt thing. Oh, he was different. The lantern and all that. He was different. But yet, I never recall that anybody saying that Bray Wyatt drew a ton of money by himself. Of course, he was, that's a wrestling card. You all kind of lump it together. But I don't remember that many main events he had. And if he had much heat on him or even as a babyface or a heel. See, I would have no idea how to book Bray Wyatt because he wasn't a heel. He wasn't a babyface. He was a guy that was just different. I don't know. I'm still lost. How would you do it?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. Is what WWE did. Is because when the vignettes were still going on, you said, man, I don't know how to book these guys. And then WWE apparently didn't either. So they went from essentially dominating the show. So there was one episode where they killed everyone in the back and they had like a one steady shot. Chad Gable had blood coming out of his ears and everything like that. And, it seemed like a really impactful way to debut them physically, I guess, instead of just with the vignettes. And then within a couple of months, they were losing constantly on the undercard. Eventually, they lost to the Final Testament, who was Karrion Kross's old group, who everyone's been fired apart from Karrion Kross and Scarlett.
That killed them then.
Yeah, they lost to the least over faction in the company.
Yeah, if you lose to Karrion Kross, hey, you might as well just walk in there and say, "When you want me to leave? Just give me a ticket and I'll leave." That's all they had to do.
Here's a question. One more, then we'll move on. What would you do with Alexa Bliss then? She was associated with Bray Wyatt. She's not really developed any persona since then, because she was always, associated with Bray Wyatt and then the Wyatt Six for a bit, and now she's just there for a week and then gone for months and then there a week again.
Yeah, I think the women's division, WWE, needs some serious adjustment.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss, I think they're trying to do something with her, but Charlotte Flair, I think, is just lost. I mean, when she came back and she didn't dominate when she went up against, what's the champion's name now?
Tiffany Stratton.
Tiffany, and their match wasn't that good. And then they had that problem with, they went out there and they were shooting on each other. And I mean, I'm lost with that. But I think Charlotte they should have kept her a little stronger. And then as they moved on, and I don't know how longer she's got in the business. I mean, appearing as a regular. But I think they should have made her a little stronger and then have somebody take her down, take her off, and advance that talent like that, and then let Charlotte, as usually is done, just fade away. And then she can come back on special shows or this, that, and the other, or manage somebody, but she didn't have that top spot anymore. But they missed that. So now they're revamping the whole women's division, and if it was me, I could have some ideas in it, because they got a lot of talent, a lot of good talent. But that Rhea Ripley would be the one I would come.
Did you see, I'm sorry, tiny bit of internet issue there. So did you see Charlotte on Friday? No. Okay, you were talking about selling and registering.
Okay, wait a minute. Charlotte on Friday, is that when she talked to Alexa Bliss?
Yeah, well, if it was this last Friday, it might have been. But I'm not talking about... I'm talking about actually a match. And it featured Julia, who's just come up from NXT.
I did see that. Wait a minute. This is the first time I saw Julia.
Yeah, she's just come up from NXT.
Okay, and why would I see her in a three-way?
I think it was like a Money in the Bank qualifier. So they threw her in there. Too many names, okay. I know. But did you see that Charlotte absolutely didn't even register one of her signature moves? Did you see this? Charlotte,
to me, again, I had known nothing about it. I think Charlotte's kind of pissed off. And if she doesn't register it, they're not telling her not to register it, I think. Or the agent wouldn't be, but I think she's just doing that on her own. I think she's pissed off because she's not getting treated and I may be wrong, but she's not getting treated like royalty, and it's pissing her off.
Let's have a look at the footage. One sec. Right, so this is like the neck spin thing. So Julia gets, for the audio listeners, Julia gets her feet and her ankles around the neck of her opponent, who was downed on their back, and she does a little spin, and then the idea is that the person she's doing it to goes, oh, my neck, maybe not quite that way. Mm-hmm. This is what Charlotte does.
No, who's in town?
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, I haven't seen her set up. She grabbed her head.
You don't even know what the move's meant to look like, do you?
Well, I've seen that move 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That's an old move. It's an English move, really. The old English guys used to do that all the time. John Foley would do it, and Les Thornton and all those guys. They would do that move, and it's just a twist of the neck, and you just get up and sell the neck a little bit. And as it gives the guy time to show off a little bit. But you're saying Charlotte didn't sell that at all, huh?
Yeah, look, well, you can see.
Who's in town?
That's it.
She's a good-looking girl.
Yeah, bad. Who? Charlotte
Well,
or Julia?
I don't think you. What do you have to sell before she does the twist? You don't have anything to sell.
No, but I mean, she does the twist, and then you're supposed to go, like that, and then instead Charlotte just goes,
Well,
and then sits up.
I didn't put the importance of that.
I'm going to keep on playing it until you agree with me, Dutch.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm agreeing. She should have damn set up and screamed and hollered and grabbed her neck.
There we go.
She did register it though.
Barely.
So,
Anyway, we're going to move on. We've got a couple more things to talk about. This is a couple of bits of AEW news. Oh, I've got to mention that as well before we leave. Will Ospreay doesn't want all ex-WWE guys going to AEW. So here's a quote from another interview he did, wherever it was. For example, one of the guys who just came in as Speedball, Mike Bailey, who was like the indie king at one point. He was going everywhere and putting on some of the greatest matches ever. I think that's what we're looking for more now, instead of guys that just got to come from WWE. And my heart goes out to them all. But we're looking for guys that are appreciative of this position, who are grafting and improving the markets elsewhere, instead of they just got let go from WWE and instantly assume they can come here. My heart goes out to them all. It should never be assumed that, oh, okay, I got let go, I can just walk into AEW. The bar is too high now. I want to see all of these guys cut their teeth somewhere and improve the houses elsewhere. That's just me. There are certain guys like Swerve Strickland that got let go from WWE and come to AEW straight away. Then he names MVP, and Bobby Lashley is a couple of good examples as well. But essentially, he doesn't mean this in a disrespectful type way. AEW shouldn't just be hiring anybody, all the waifs and strays from WWE as soon as they get fired. And I think he's absolutely right.
well, that should be Tony Khan saying that, don't you think? Who made him paymaster?
I guess it was just something he was asked in an interview and gave his answer, but yeah.
I don't see anything. If somebody if Tony thinks he can use someone from WWE, no matter what they've done over there, whether they were main event or first match or whatever, it's Tony Khan's decision. And I'm sure to get to WWE, they paid their dues, kind of. So what he's talking about, he wants guys that WWE hasn't touched to go to AEW. But who trains these guys? Are they self-trained? Or somebody else trained them? And when they get to AEW, who's going to continue their training? So I think what he's saying is, don't, just because you're in WWE and you get let go, don't willingly accept that the door is open for you here at AEW, no questions asked. That's okay, but I think he made a long answer out of an inadequate question, or just a question that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, TNA used to do that a lot. As soon as someone would get fired from WWE, they'd be out to get them. I mean, in a positive way, to sign them.
Mm-hmm.
And AEW for a while has done the same thing as well. So I think that's probably, I don't know, it seems like a decent message,
It's just business. So yeah. I think by him printing that, I think Tony is going to read that and say, brother, please lighten up. That's not your business. And you don't need to be discussing it with the wrestling fans anyway. You need to discuss it with me. I'm the one paying the money.
Well, speaking of Tony Khan, he has responded to WWE counterbooking AEW. Counterbooking venues at this point. During Sunday night's post-Double or Nothing press conference, Tony Khan reacted to the consistent, quote-unquote, trend of WWE events on the same day as AEW pay-per-views. Double or Nothing and NXT Battleground aired head-to-head last night, with Double or Nothing taking place in Arizona and Battleground being held in Florida. When AEW All in Texas happens this July, it also faces competition from WWE counter-programming, as WWE, my printer stopped working so I can't see, has something from Atlanta featuring NXT Great American Bash, Saturday night's main event, and Evolution 2. It's pretty consistent when when Tony Khan said, when asked about his feelings, other companies scheduling events against AEW. I'd say it's the most consistent event head-to-head scheduling I've seen since Jim Crockett Promotions saw a lot of scheduling that went that way. And I can tell you this will go a lot differently than that did. Thank you for asking. So, what do you think of WWE? Because they're doing it on purpose. I mean, WWE, you said this.
They have done this forever. You know, if a company that they want to take over or run out of business, they just go in there and put a pay-per-view on opposite or run the night before if it's a live event. And people only got the money to take the family to one of them. So they're going to have to make a decision. You want to go to this one or you want to go to the other one? And usually the earlier one, he would always go before them. So he would kind of drain the market before the other company got there. But they've done that forever. That was Vince's way of combating these smaller territories, that if he'd have just left it alone, they would have went out of business anyway, because, you know, their TV was killing their TV was killing the little territories. So, and that was a sad, sad time in our wrestling business, sitting back and watching, you know, Vince kill the business that he had professed to love. But what he had done, he put a lot of guys out of work. And that's why Vince was so hated in the earlier days, because, you know, unless you work for him or the Atlanta office, WCW, you weren't in the wrestling business, period.
Now, you've said this before multiple times. This isn't a war. This isn't a wrestling war between WWE and AEW, because WWE doesn't realize they're in a war. But this is very much the kind of thing that wrestling companies do when they are in a war. Yep. So even if they're absolutely nowhere close as far as drawing money or tickets or whatever else it may be, why are WWE going out of their way to affect AEW business?
I don't know. That's just what they do. They've always done it. And this is, like I said, Vince McMahon started it first, and they're staying with it. So I don't know, they don't worry. I don't think they worry about the live events that much. They do worry about the pay-per-views, because they don't want them to get any pay-per-views and make it as unprofitable or not as profitable as it should have been. But they do it, so, and it's legal, so that they can do as they please. And Tony has to worry about it. When he brought up Jim Crockett Promotions, a lot of people listening, I don't think, well, probably our fans know who Jim Crockett Promotions is, but he reached back 40 years into the 80s, or at least 30 years, reached back there and pulled that name out of a hat, because that's how long Vince, Vince, they got John Cena now. He's going to kill the wrestling business. Vince already did it at one time and then brought it back. Somebody said, "Oh, wrestling's going to be dead." I said, "Wrestling will never die." So what do you mean? He says, "I've seen these houses go down to you have 100 people sitting out there. It's dead," they said. And all of a sudden they do the right thing. Then the next week, I'm just using the 100 fans as a prop, but you come back next week, there's 200 fans there, and you do something good again, and there's 300, and then it starts to build. You're rebuilding it. If you're killing it, it doesn't grow, but you can't kill the wrestling business. Never. You can't kill movies. You can't kill plays. You can't kill books. It's an entertainment form that can't be killed. It can be damaged. It can be hurt. It can lose interest, but you'll never kill wrestling.
I was thinking, you've been not part of, but you've been part of companies where a wrestling war has been breaking out. I mean, Georgia, when you first broke into the business full time, there was the Georgia wars. I've always been involved in these wars. Always, just by luck of the draw, I guess. Tennessee, Goulas and Jarrett.
That wasn't really a war. That was almost like a little skirmish on the border.
What about Puerto Rico? Because obviously there was IWA
Yeah,
and
I was there too.
WWC. I mean, were there any dirty tricks between the two promotions, trying to freeze
No.
each other out of arenas, or do they coexist?
First of all, here was Carlos Colon's company, and I booked for it, and this other company started up, right? Well, when I was with Carlos, I stomped the hell out of IWA. I mean, we were getting like a 9 rating, 10, and which is average there, really. And then I had a little money disagreement with them, and the other company wanted to talk to me, so I went over there to Victor Quinones' company, IWA, and said, hey, give me this amount of money and I'll come work for you. I quit, went home for Christmas, come back, all of a sudden started another show. And it took me 3 months to bring IWA back up, and we were both doing like a 7. And then I did something good, and boop, it popped to 8, and then it went to 9, 10. And my highest rating in Puerto Rico for the IWA was like an 18.5, I think. And at one point I hit a 22 rating. It sounds unbelievable. And people look at me and said, yeah, stop your damn lying. But really, I can document it if I want to go back and look at it. But an 18 rating, I was even surprised myself. I said, that's bullshit. I don't have an 18 rating. And they said, yeah, and I read it off the sheet. TV station sent it to the office, and it was an 18 rating. So, but see, my booking is more of an up style booking. Everybody is happy, and I have bullshit heels, and I mean, I have tough heels, but I have the ones underneath. They always get beat, but they put on a show, and I had the right people at the right time, and sometimes I wouldn't even plan the card. And I would go to the matches, and the first thing I would do, this is a Saturday night show, first thing I do, I would go order me 2 beers. And I'd go in the dressing room, and I'd be drinking it, and somebody'd say, what are we doing tonight? I said, I'll get to you in a minute. I haven't even thought about it, really. And then all of a sudden, the guys come in, and guys, I said, do this and this and this, and get out of here and put it together. And hellacious houses. They'd be just on a regular show on Saturday night, be 3,500 fans out there. And they liked the concept. They liked that it wasn't too heavy, but it wasn't, it was kind of believable too. And that's how I did it. I remember Eddie Gilbert after, he said, what are we going to do tonight? I said, I don't know. I was laying around the pool that afternoon before the show. He said, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. And it's like 4:00. He went, what? You haven't thought about it? When are you going to start thinking about it? And I said, when I get over there and look at the crowd. And that's what I do. I'd go out there and I look how the crowd was coming in. Then I'd go and lay out the show. And I thought about it a little bit, but Eddie would just stress over it. Like he booked after I did, and I would hurt here. He would go in there and he'd sit down and he'd write down, and he'd scratch his head and he'd write some more down. But hell, just give me the card and I'll call the finishes and let's go. And I never left with a really, really hot finish. I did, but after the baby faces had hit the ring and cleaned up the carnage, and heels won, but they got ran off. I did that. I did it for 2 years. I used to go to shows in Puerto Rico, and not one heel won. It was always be the baby faces, and I believed the town up, or the little arena up, and they were happy because in Puerto Rico you don't want to make the people too mad because they'll follow you out to the car. So I left them all in a good mood, and I'd leave. So that's how I did it there.
The thing is, you illustrate a very, very good point there, is with all these wrestling wars, so to speak, or, where promotions coexisting, or, not coexisting, but maybe, at each other's throats, or maybe not, who knows, in the same area at the same time, is it very rarely boils down to who's being more nefarious, like with Jim Crockett Promotions versus the WWF. The WWF probably at that time, there were two things. One, who's got the best show, and 2, business mismanagement. That's what really determines who sort of wins in these promotional wars. All this like tit for tat kind of thing, where occasionally WWE will book out an arena the day before AEW will in the same area or the same venue or wherever it might be. It's all fairly small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, but the Jim Crockett wars were way more vicious. The AWA one was way more vicious. That being said, WWE has absolutely no reason. All they're doing is legitimizing AEW as an actual threat by even bothering.
Well, they say they don't worry about them, and I've said before, and you've brought that up, if there's a war going on, one side has to know there's a war. And I don't think WWE realizes there's a war, but they do when they book versus AEW. I have so many 3 letters with the W in them. I get it confused sometimes, but it's actually good. I watched a little bit of AEW. And I do find out that MJF and the Hurt Business, if they stay on that, they got some business. I think that's something that they can really navigate and make it draw some money.
We've got a couple more bits of news, then we're going to shut down the show. TNA Banning Stuff now. Mike Johnson of PW Insider had reported some time ago that TNA has decided that blading or heavy bleeding is going to be banned. Basically, future-proofing for sponsorship, I guess, the shows, and also when they eventually do use blood, then it's more impactful. According to Fightful Select Steve Macklin, it was also noted that Macklin believed that the blood ban was taking place, so, bloodshed on television returns, it'll mean more. But also, Fightful Select said on several other, there are going to be several other changes taking place. Slaps are no longer allowed to be used unless approved by an agent. And in addition to this,
slaps. You mean the slaps like the 2 guys sitting down in front of each other and slapping each other?
I'd hope so. That needs to go.
That's horrible.
I don't know what it is. It could be women slapping men. I don't know. That's a weird one to ban.
Wait a minute. Men slapping women.
That'd be banned already. But what if women slap men? Or
why would it be, man? Hell, the damn with the current political crisis is like, not a crisis, but biological men can play against women in sports, in college.
Well, they can't slap them in TNA apparently now.
Okay, I don't get that slapping. Or is it chest slapping?
No, that'd be chops. But I thought that as well if it was a chest. Anyway,
I don't get that.
It's a bit vague. One more that's very, very specific but very weird is the throat/gesture is also no longer allowed and will come with $100 fine each time it's done. Why
$100?
That? Yeah.
That'll stop them. I mean, that reads bad. That reads independent at $100.
Yeah, it should be a bigger fine.
It should be $1,000 and people take notice of it. So not $100 fine, $1,000 fine. So why? And that's for sponsors, I'm sure. Yes?
Yeah, I guess so, but I don't know. Slaps for sponsors, I don't see why that would be.
No, I don't even know what kind of slaps they're talking about. Anybody knows, right, and tell us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're at a loss here.
Right, okay, last thing we're going to talk about, Kurt Angle versus the Sandman. The Sandman recently, for whatever reason, I mean, goodness knows why this has already happened, but right, the Sandman recently made a note on a podcast that he said that Kurt Angle was a quote-unquote pussy in turning his back on the business. Now, this is in reference to 1996. They do Raven and the Sandman, Stevie Richards and the Blue Meanie and such. They're all involved in putting the Sandman on a cross, a crucifix, and they crucify the Sandman in the ECW arena. This is back in 1996. This is in Pittsburgh, which also... no, I'm sorry, it'd be Philadelphia, I'm sorry. Pittsburgh being the hometown of Kurt Angle. So, home state hero, just won the gold medal, and all of a sudden Kurt Angle finds himself in ECW, and he sees the crucifixion thing happen, and he tells Paul Heyman that if he appears on this show, he will sue him and don't ever call me again, because he's mortally offended by the story.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is why Sandman has called him a pussy. He says he went on to say that the Olympic gold medalist could have been watching a movie and it may have had a similar plot. Kurt Angle replied, well, the resurrection of Christ or whatever, I guess that would have it in. Kurt Angle replied to the Sandman in the comments section of the resurfaced clip and stated that if the former ECW World Champion had a problem with it, he could do something about it. If Sandman has a problem with me, then do something about it, you pussy.
Mm-hmm.
That escalated after 30 years.
Well, why would Sandman even say that? I mean, I don't get this whole spat anyway. He's just talking. Was it on Twitter?
No, it was on a video interview or a podcast or some such.
Okay. Well, good for them.
Would you be offended by this, or like religious connotations in wrestling?
Well, I don't like religious. I mean, the words wouldn't bother me. And I don't know if the cross would bother me, really, because I'm not very religious anyway. But I guess it would bother some people. And if it bothers some people, you need to hear that. I mean, the booker needs to hear that, because if one person was offended, he's not the only one, because they associate the cross with something entirely different and they put him up there like Jesus on the cross, right?
Oh yeah, they gave him a barbed wire crown instead of a crown of thorns.
I didn't much care for that angle. I don't, I think some of these people, they read too much into it, even creating it. I don't know whose idea that was. I don't think it was a good idea. It
was Ravens, would you believe?
Well, I believe it was Ravens. You know Raven?
Yeah, I've interviewed him, yeah.
You ever talk to him much?
Yeah.
Raven's out there. He really is. I liked him. A good guy, I guess. And I would talk to him, and but I would come away sometimes and saying, I don't know about that guy. I really don't. So, but anyway, when you put any kind of a religious background to anything, especially in wrestling, I don't like that at all.
Okay, to finish it on, who would win a fight in 2025, the Sandman or Kurt Angle? It's got to be Kurt.
God. Please. I don't think Sandman can get in the room. How many beers do you think Sandman has ever drank in his life?
He's drank a lot recently. He was incredibly fat the last public appearance he was on. He's got the biggest beer belly. But then, he will lose weight really quickly, and then he'll, balloon up again.
Yeah, well. And, hey, I like Sandman, too. Hey, we went, I think I brought him to Puerto Rico one time, and I forgot. See, what happened here? Savio, who was part owner of the company, he didn't want me to play Sandman's music. And I went, Wait a minute. Have I told you this?
Yeah.
And I said, that's his whole deal. Okay, go ahead. And we played it. And the people, he went all around the arena. It takes him about 5 to 7 minutes to get into the ring. But that was the most enjoyable part of the match, because when the match started, the people sat down. I mean, now they don't feel good anymore because the song stopped, the music stopped, and then they had a short match, 1, 2, 3, bang, and then they started music again. Then it's all up walking with him again. So I left them standing up, and Sandman, we covered up his lack of ability, because that's what you got to do. Sandman was good for 3 or 4 or 5 chops or whatever, and then he'd be out of there. So
he's the Jimmy Valiant of our time.
Well, he's not as good as Jimmy Valiant. Didn't draw as much money as Jimmy Valiant, but he did draw a little money. The Harris boys told me one time, I forgot what happened. They was in ECW. They're supposed to be beating the crap out of somebody, and here come the Sandman. and he was supposed to come, but he was supposed to come earlier in the match, and he missed his cue totally. And then he came somewhere toward the end. I think it was Donnie told me. It was Don and Ron. And Donnie said he hit him so hard in the head with something, he says, it almost knocked him out. And then when you get those Harris boys mad, they beat, according to Ronnie and Donnie, they beat him down. You know, you're just the babyface beating the heels back to the dressing room. They beat him back to the dressing room. And you get those two Harris boys pissed off on you. And they went in the dressing room, and then later they said, when they went to Paul Heyman and told him something like, don't ever book us with that son of a bitch, whatever, they were mad at him because he'd knocked the crap out of him. And then in comes Sandman. Where are them guys at? And they said, and they had to pull Ronnie and Donnie back from him. And then I think Sandman was making himself unavailable. But he had been drinking all night long. So it really wasn't Sandman doing it. It was the beer doing it. But I don't think he did it again.
No, I'm sure after a interaction with Ron and Don Harris, you don't get told twice.
No.
On that basis, then, we're not going to tell you twice. We're going to go. We are done with this podcast. We've actually gone a bit over what we normally do, a tiny bit over, I guess. We're 2 hours 3.
This is a little bit extra.
Okay.
Did you read that WWE is going to start a podcast for Cody Rhodes?
Yeah. Do you know who the first guest is?
Who?
Brandy Rhodes, his wife.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, hit her do good. We're not going to advertise it anymore, though.
No, God, I'm not going to watch it. I mean, Stephanie's Places with Stephanie McMahon has got her own interview thing, and like apparently CM Punk was on it, and he was so fawning over Stephanie. I was like, I'm out.
That was on TV, correct?
I think it might have been. Yeah, maybe it was on ESPN Plus or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, they got to give her something to do.
I know, but she's so the worst person to interview. A WWE sponsored podcast is already fairly useless because you're always going to be biased to the company. But then when Stephanie's hosting it, how can you say anything bad about the company or contentious or anything? All you're going to do is just agree with her. What's the point?
That's it.
Yeah, just biggest waste of time. That's why we're independent podcasters, goodness me. And
we
that's
can
say
we can say what we want to say.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You get the truth here, whether it hurts or not. Now, we try to sometimes coat it a little bit with some sugar to keep it from being too bad. But if the things are bad, it's just bad. There's no way you can cover it up.
Absolutely. And you will hear all the bad news on Storytime with Dutch Mantell every single Wednesday, 8 a.m., I think, Eastern. I'm still struggling with the American. I think it's 8 a.m. Eastern. This gets released every Wednesday. So, Storytime with Dutch Mantell every single Wednesday, of course, all podcast platforms, and of course here on YouTube. And Ask Dutch Anything as well every single Sunday, where fans get to ask the Dirty Dutchman himself any question you can. You go to questionsfordutch@gmail.com to submit your questions there. Best ones will make it into the script. But until then, we'll see you on Sunday. Dutch, we the people.
We the people.